Thomas here with ForReel Movie News and Reviews. As part of our coverage of Sundance 2021, I am speaking today with Julian Doan, the writer and director for the short film Raspberry, which is playing in the Shorts Program 2 at the festival from January 28th until February 3rd. Julian, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I'm looking forward to this conversation a lot, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. I want to start by congratulating you on your film getting into Sundance. I'm sure that that's really exciting.
Yeah, yeah, it's super exciting. They called and I was, inside I was like over the moon, but I sort of like didn't know. I was trying to play it cool, and I was
Uh-huh.
like, she called and she accepted it. She's like, I would like to invite you to Sundance, and I was like, yeah. Oh, wow, that sounds great. And I was like trying to maintain this like, you know, kind of like normalcy to my voice, but inside I was like, ah. Um, and I actually told them maybe
Okay.
at first because I was like, I don't know, it's like a COVID year. Does the invitation stand if we wait till like 2022? She's like, no, you'd have to reapply. And I was like,
Oh man.
okay. I was like, I'm like 90% sure, but let me just like sit on it for like a night. But yeah, of course,
That's awesome.
excited.
Was this like always the goal for this film, or you is this something that you made to go through the film festival circuits and get that kind of exposure, or is this kind of a personal passion project? Like, what was the ultimate goal for this movie?
I mean, I think at some level, you probably make anything kind of hoping to at least go through the festival circuit. But we weren't like actively thinking about it. No, it was like it came together really quickly, and you know, but it was stuff I'd been writing for a while because it's very personal. It's the stuff that happens in the film is based on like me losing my dad a couple years ago. So yeah, I think we just set out to like make it. And I wanted to like challenge myself to make something better than anything I'd done before, and something good and something, emotional that kind of like reveals some of my thoughts I had about, death and stuff like that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's an unexpected surprise for sure.
Well, that's great. In fact, why don't you tell us a little bit about what the short film is about and kind of how it came to how you came around to making it and putting it on film.
Sure. It's it's a 7-minute short film. It's about like a very short moment in time. I usually say this is the moment between having someone and never having them again. And so it's a family, a Korean American family who's you start the film with them watching their father take his last few breaths, his last few dying breaths, and then um, they have to kind of like sit with the reality of that happening, and then in the midst of like trying to grieve, these funeral home uh undertakers come to remove the body, and we sort of focus in on like one son who you sort of see on like the outskirts of the family, and you kind of get a sense that like he's having trouble processing everything that's been happening. And then as like they're supposed to say their goodbyes, we sort of explore the headspace of someone who's like grappling with like how to say goodbye to someone in like this sort of limited time.
Right, and it's definitely very emotional. I think how it's written, how it's shot, the cast that you got to play these characters, it's a very emotional piece, and I think that all of what you're saying was conveyed very clearly and done very well in such a short frame of time. And I do like the kind of slice of life aspect to it. It's not that I mean it's building up to something, but it's very much about the headspace of this one character who's dealing with the grief of losing his dad um, with the rest of the family. There is a moment that it does build up to, which the movie is titled after, and it's such an interesting moment because it really juxtaposes, I think, that very kind of somber tone. Can you tell me a little bit about that moment that it builds up to?
Yeah, it's sort of it was sort of written in initially as a bit of like a punchline, sort of.
Mhm.
I think my initial ideas for this were a bit more comedic. I mean, a lot of like what I was interested in writing about was like capturing a tone that like kind of, you know, exposed the sort of awkwardness and the sort of like bizarreness of trying to like, you know, I feel like it's somewhat of a futile effort to try to even think of anything like eloquent or good to say in that moment. You know, I feel like anything that comes out of your mouth at some level feels like garbage or feels like some sort of um um you know, performance or something. I don't know. It's like can this goodbye feel honest, you know? And so it does build up to a moment, and I know, you know, in writing the moment, I was like, I just thought it was sort of comical. I thought it was, you know, there was like a strange juxtaposition in like that happening, and then kind of like how sad it makes him. But like in talking with Ray, the lead actor, and then, you know, as we tried to like kind of find our way to like what it actually meant for him, and then what it might mean to like a viewer, I think we like really found that it was actually like much more sort of like meaningful for a lot of people who read the script, especially, and that I didn't initially think. But a lot of people thought it like really, I don't know, captured something both sort of funny and also like very sweet. And I was like really surprised by that. Um, so, you know, like a lot of my background, maybe over the past 5 years and stuff has been in like comedy. So I think it was a little bit trying to have a little bit of both, like trying to kind of structure it in a bit like maybe a sketch, in terms of getting in a build, you know, and an expectation. Um, but also trying to put in like the stuff that I'm just also, you know, interested in as a person that has like more observational slice of life, um, kind of, you know, that kind of look at things.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that that moment, I remember, when I first watched it and it got to that moment, it's like, wow, this is so juxtaposed. It can go in any direction. There's a I'm trying to kind of piece together where is this going, what's going to happen, and I actually really appreciate the direction that you did take it because it does really capitalize. It's a punchline, but not like in a comedic sense. Ultimately, it just really does have that emotional punch. Once you realize kind of how tough the situation is for this character. So I love the direction that you took that, and I think it wraps at least this moment up very well. But when it comes to comedy and drama, you've been talking about how you're experienced in comedy, and but you wanted to explore kind of the emotional, dramatic side here. And when it comes to storytelling, which do you prefer? Do you prefer being more comedic driven as a director and writer and storyteller, or do you prefer this like dramatic um, type of storytelling that you did here with Raspberry?
Yeah. Real quick, by the way, is it like, can we talk about sort of spoilers in this?
Yeah, sure.
In
Why
this?
not? Yeah. Okay. So,
Okay.
spoiler alert.
Well, you know, yeah, I wasn't sure how open we can kind of talk about this moment, or if we
Yeah.
sort of have to sidestep it. But you know, I'm interested in both. I think as I get older, maybe after losing my dad, my dramatic, you know, the interest of drama kind of like got deeper. I think it was always there. But I think right now I'm certainly interested in kind of like sort of exploring stories that like have this kind of really that sort of explore the really close relationship of, you know, tragedy and sort of, um you know, humor and comic nature, because I think all of those are so intertwined in tragedy sometimes. And I think for me, when I'm going through like tragic events, I can't help but like notice like all the kind of like little details that just they make me laugh in my head, you know, like, and a tough part in this is like, you know, obviously we have like what is a broad joke in, you know, the raspberry that happens, and it feels broad when it first happens, and then you sort of like, you know, I think it was really brilliant what Ray did, that like he kind of turned it into something like so deeply sad, like right after. And I think, I mean, I think that kind of like emotional turn happens when you're like going through these kinds of things, you know, and then working, especially in this film, like working toward that. There's other things in there that like there's a lot more slice of life stuff that I wanted to kind of put in there that were funny, you know, like I just think it's like awkward to watch these two strangers come into your home, and they're kind of like they perform their job in this like perfunctory way, and it's almost like they're like plumbers or like cable repair people. It's like they just sort of come here and they remove a body and then they leave, and it's like it's sort of nothing to them. And so I think like capturing things like the way that they come into the house and sort of how like, not putting any music and sort of just like hearing the sounds of this, like, when it happened for me, I just see them bring in this gurney. I'm like, what the fuck is this thing? It's like, I don't know what I expected. Like, should it have been some sort of like gilded, like, you know, uh, uh, I don't know, like coffin or something? It's like, but it just looks like this medical, it's so sterile.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to kind of like, yeah, toss like a few of those things in, and hopefully audiences kind of start to chuckle like somewhere in the middle,
Hmm.
and then maybe they start to expect, I don't know, something different happening toward the end with the character, like whether or not it's funny or whether or not some people are a little bit scared, maybe. um yeah.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I think that was all conveyed well. Like when the Undertakers do come in, it's awkward, it's clunky. Like he has a hard time getting it through the door for a second, and yeah, it's such a awkward situation. But that's like you say, it is something that you really can't prepare yourself for. It just you can try, but you just never really know until you're in that moment. Um,
Yeah.
so so yeah, no, and I really appreciate how all that came together.
And like when they're coming in, they're sort of trying to maintain this like
Mhm,
air of, you know there's like a drama to how everybody's walking, and like when that
mhm.
stuff happens, it's like there's more, everyone holds themselves more. I don't know what the word for it would be, but you know what I mean, like it's like
Right.
they're trying to maintain this like civility or something.
Mhm.
um when in actuality it's like, this is a crazy moment, like why can't we just like let our arms loose and just like cry and be wild, and I don't know,
Yeah.
like
Be
all the
and
like kind of primal things that are coming out.
absolutely, and be human, right? I think that that's exactly what is missing in their role, I guess, in their part of this whole situation is the human aspect. I mean, they're saying the "I'm sorries" and sorry for your losses, but where's the where's the connection? Right? There's no connection, and so it is a bit
Right.
awkward in that sense. So
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
so yeah, yeah, very very well done putting all of that together. And I do want to say I'm sorry for your loss with your dad, but I do really appreciate how you've channeled that experience into your storytelling. It for me it worked really well in this movie, and I just really appreciate what you did with it. Um,
Thanks. Yeah.
we have a few more minutes. I am interested in what you're in because you were telling me a little bit about what you're working on now. I'm interested in you explaining to audiences kind of what you're working on now and maybe what projects you might have coming up that you might want to direct, write, and make.
Yeah. Well, this scene essentially was lifted from a feature I was writing about the experiences of losing my dad and kind of a family going through that experience, and capturing all of that sort of like the banality and the sort of like humor in people trying to kind of navigate um, loss and death, while sort of seeing all the stuff between the drama is like the stuff that interests me, and that stuff that I think is very funny. So I've been writing a feature that is essentially Raspberry without the raspberry, probably, because I think if you put that in the film, there's nowhere to go after that. I don't know. Some people have said, "Oh, I want to see where this film goes." I'm like, I don't know if this film goes anywhere. I think it
Mhm.
sort of ends.
Right.
I think this short was, for me, a very complete story, in that it's sort of, I kind of emotionally feel the same way as these characters, and that like a moment is wrapped up for me. Um,
Mhm.
but I certainly like more fully want to like explore that experience. There's a lot of there's just a lot of weird stuff with like, I mean, you know I'll just tell you this, like, I mean, my dad passed away on his wife's 60th birthday that
Oh
morning.
wow.
So it's like we went from wheeling his body out the door to within 10 minutes, she got dressed up, and then we like had a birthday cake, and we like sang happy birthday and like tried to celebrate. I mean, those two things sit so closely together, and it's strange. I don't know how to describe it. But so maybe that's, I think the only really real way to like explore that is to kind of like see it.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely. I
that's
mean,
that's what I want to explore in a kind of longer way.
that sounds great. As far as like a story to expound upon. It's like that raspberry juxtaposition with the somber tone. Um, there is certainly something there to be explored, and I would certainly love to see what a feature length or whatever storytelling form you put that in, because it's something that that is unique in these situations, and I don't think stories explore the awkwardness enough. And so, yeah, that sounds wonderful. I'm looking forward to that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, yeah, I'll be excited to work on it.
Yeah, for
Hopefully
sure.
get to make it.
So great. Well, is there anything else you'd like viewers to know about you or the film or anything?
Besides the fact that they can catch it on, Sundance's streaming platform, which, of course we wish we were in Park City showing it to people like in person, but I think what's great is we get to share it with, just about anybody in the States right now. So that's really awesome. I hope it brings people some reflection on maybe how they feel about loss and death, and kind of how they might their relationships with people that are still alive, and the relationships with people who are gone. And other than that, I mean, there's a lot of other great shorts in our program too, so I think it's going to be I hope people have fun watching Raspberry as well as all the other shorts we're playing with.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Julian, for talking with me. For anyone attending Sundance, Raspberry will be a part of short programs too. And you can catch that at festival.sundance.org from the 28th until February 3rd. And yeah, I highly recommend it. It's a very, very well put together short film. And so thank you, Julian, for taking this time out. And everyone else, until next time, keep it for real.